What's up guys, and welcome back to a brand new video on the channel covering the Ultimate Infantry Guide. This video will be featuring the Specialist class for Battlefront 2, and you might just be thinking this class extends just as far as clicking somebody's head. You know, the all aim, no brain kind of gameplay. However, you'd be surprised what else the Specialist class has to offer. Rest assured, in this in-depth guide, you will know everything by the end of this video. So let's first get through the abilities of the Specialist class and how they work. You'll notice the first ability is the Shock Grenade. That is a grenade when thrown, it covers an area in lightning and deals damage over time. This also slows enemies within the radius. The grenade is great for closing entryways and buying you time. When an enemy sneaks up close to you, the slow from the shock grenade is significant and helps in slowing them down for you to line up a shot more easily. You can also equip a star card called the Improved Shock Grenade, where you have a longer duration and radius for the grenade. Although the Specialist class specializes mainly in long range combat, you also have the Infiltration ability, which is your middle ability for close quarters. This ability consists of a 3-round burst weapon. It's similar to the A280 CFE and the Vanguard, and it also gives you a burst of movement speed when wielding it, so I currently use this at the start of games to get into better sniping positions. Probably the biggest perk of the Infiltration is that it marks precise locations on your minimap where enemies are. This is very useful for enemies pushing you. You know exactly when they're going to push and you can line up headshots, especially since this weapon does one burst to the head. It leaves the enemy with absolutely no time to react at all. However, you should know that there's a known Battlefront bug where this might not be working some of the time, and it comes up as default radar markings when using the weapon. And you might just think the Infiltration is pretty OP, but that isn't everything to it. Another thing that people don't actually know with the Infiltration is that it misdirects starfighters if you're close enough. It works 100% of the time on bombers, although with others it's actually pretty RNG. Alright, so there are several different variants of the Infiltration, all of which are pretty useful, starting with the Scrambler Infiltration that you first unlock. Now what the Scrambler Infiltration does exactly is it's an improved version of the Infiltration that marks enemies for your allies on the minimap, and it scrambles enemy scanners in range, which is pretty helpful as it gives your entire team precise locations on the minimap as to where enemies are, so you can really utilize this when you're with a squad. Moving on to the next Infiltration star card is the Hardened Infiltration. This is probably my favorite star card in the Specialist set, just because it gives you about like 40% damage reduction, I think it is, allowing you to tank an NT headshot and a whole bunch of things. Honestly, you feel like a god when you're walking through the streets with your Hardened Infiltration. So one of my star cards that I definitely recommend. It allows you to rush into hallways that you necessarily wouldn't survive. Say you're in a 3v1, you can probably tank enough damage to actually make it out alive. Hence why I love it, especially with the Infiltration being so reliable. It makes it one of the best star cards in the game. Next up is the Killstreak Infiltration. Now the Killstreak Infiltration is very similar to the Killstreak Vanguard, where you get a kill and then it increases your duration of the ability. It gives you about 55% back when you get a kill, but also know that when you have these equipped, it reduces the timer of the Infiltration, so that you can't actually use it for movement speed as easily because it lasts less time. Hence I don't equip it that often. Now the last ability for the Specialist is the Thermal Binoculars, and it is what it sounds like. They are thermal, so you can see through people through walls, and it's honestly like having ESP. These goggles have helped me spot enemies that I couldn't see from far away distances, or when I just couldn't find any enemies at all. When you left click people with this ability, it marks them, giving them a red outline. You receive battle points for this, as well as receive kill assists for when marked enemies are killed by your allies, which proves really helpful for gaining battle points at the start of a round. I normally use this at the start of Naboo, and it totals in about 400 battle points, and then you get kill assists on the way, making your battle point grind for a hero a lot easier on sniping maps. Now you can upgrade this ability to the Improved Thermal Binoculars, but I don't think I've ever used this star card ever. It just increases the duration that the enemies are marked for to 12 seconds at most, which it doesn't seem that helpful, as I almost never find myself using this ability, as most maps I play are usually CQC except for the usual Hoth, Crate and Naboo, sometimes used on Kashyyyk as well. One map that you'll find it's broken for is Endor. Endor, it doesn't actually show up anybody. This is really annoying. If you also use Boba Fett on Endor, you won't be able to see enemies marked by your E. You'll see them on the minimap, but you won't actually see them highlighted in yellow. So if you're looking for people on Endor with the thermals, and you probably won't be able to see anyone, that's why. It still marks people with the red outline if you do spot them and left click them, but for the most part, it does not work. Alright, in this section of the video, we're going to be going through the weapons, starting with the default weapon. As per usual, the default weapon is like a DMR. It is single fire, with it being a 3-shot body shot and a 2-shot headshot. With the exception being heavy with 200 HP, this requires 4 shots in total to the body with 3 headshots. I describe the default sniper as the worst starting gun simply because of the time to kill in Battlefront 2. It's very unforgiving if you miss your shots, especially when you see the snipers you unlock down the road, which are much better by example. The IQ-11 is the second gun you unlock at 50 kills. This weapon is similar to the default weapon, as it only fires in single fire, except a 1 headshot and a body shot will kill an enemy, and the rate of fire is a lot faster in comparison. It also has good attachments to choose from. The setup I run in particular is a bolt speed and improved cooling. This helps as it makes the blaster pretty much hit reg, which is handy for taking out starfighters. Now, if you don't know what I mean by that, it simply means that there is little to no travel time for the laser, so the time taken to hit your target is little to none. Now, the next weapon in the specialist arsenal is, in my eyes, one of the best guns in the game, if not the best. The A280 CFE. Alright, so inherently, what the A280 CFE is a modified version of the Assault A280 for a quicker rate of fire, and it has more range with little to no recoil, allowing you to one-burst enemies similar to the infiltration with a scope, essentially, is what it is. When you first unlock this weapon, it's in single fire. However, equipping the attachment burst mode, it increases the firing capacity to 3 blaster bolts at a time instead of just 1. I usually hip fire this gun and I use it in close quarters or medium combat ranges. It falls off at longer ranges in particular, as the burst has a more significant recoil over range. The last weapon is the NT242, and probably my favorite gun to use in this class. This sniper looks similar to a modern 50 cal sniper rifle and rewards precision, as a sniper one-shots any infantry class at all ranges in the head, and you'll find it two-shotting to the body. The only exception for this is when a heavy is mid-roll, hence he lives on like 1 HP, it's pretty nuts, and if a officer does buff his teammate and he walks out with 250 HP or 300. Alright, to go over the attachments for this class, you want to run the dual zoom with the improved cooling star card. However, the last attachments for the NT is actually very important. It's the disruptor shot. You equip this situationally and it's really useful for taking out vehicles, both starfighters and ground vehicles. One tip for using this attachment is that you can use it on Naboo first phase or any Clone Wars map and shoot the lat firing over if there is one actually up. There usually is on one of these maps, and it's really good for point farming. You can get up to 3,000 points at the start of a match. Alright, that is everything for the specialist arsenal of weapons. It's pretty powerful and it's useful for absolutely every single situation. The specialist class is probably one that will be used on any map at any time, and is definitely one of my favorite classes. Alright, to move on now, we're going to be talking about my star card setup. The first star card that I do run is the marksman star card, followed by the bounty hunter star card as usual, and the hardened infiltration star card. Now, what you can do if you are running a different gun than the NT242, you can replace marksman with survivalist if you're thinking of using the A280 CFE more. With the IK though, I'd recommend having marksman equipped so that you don't have to reload as often. Just because the NT242 does have a smaller mag size than every single other gun, it makes the marksman star card, where it reduces the heat, a lot more viable. The next star card that we'll be talking about that is unique to the specialist class is the stealth star card, where you remain hidden on enemy scanners when firing your weapon, and you also do increased melee damage. The melee damage is up to 125. I do see a bunch of people using this star card when they're going to be melee specialist, where they pop the bubble shield at the same time. It's definitely a fun strat, but it isn't really for Battlefront 2. However, it is actually a fun challenge to do from time to time. Alright, next up you have the trip mine star card. This is a mine where it's basically a laser tripwire. It's like a claymore basically. It detonates when an enemy soldier crosses the tripwire, and the recharge time is up to 16. It does replace your thermal binocular, and it is really good for covering your flanks where you don't have the manpower to actually hold a certain flank and there's a low probability of somebody coming there. Make sure that you don't actually put this in front of the enemy, as they'll be able to shoot it and blow it up. However, one star card that does shield you from explosives is the personal shield. This creates a shield bubble surrounding you and blocking damage from all directions. You can't fire your weapon while your shield's active. You probably noticed in co-op that AI fire while their shield's active and it goes through it, which is pretty nuts, but you can't fire during this animation. The shield health at purple is at 240 HP and it replaces the thermal binocular. Next up is the Stinger pistol, one of the most toxic weapons in the game. Usually I used to pick this when I used to get frustrated at like an Anakin player back when Anakin was really OP and really annoying to deal with, or like a Yoda that was really annoying to hit. This pistol fires Stinger projectiles that does damage over time, preventing the victims from regenerating health. This was very useful. However, it got nerfed into the ground recently. The damage over time actually doesn't stack anymore, and it also goes away now when the person who shot the stinger dies. So the use of this is actually pretty redundant now. Next up is the repulsor cannon. It's a modified version of the CA-87 weapon that fires a powerful short-range shockwave. This is similar to the Clone Commando's repulsor blast that knocks people away. The repulsor blast on the Clone Commando has a larger range. You only have 2 shots in a magazine with this star card. And that's going to wrap up the unique star cards for the specialist class. If you've watched an Ultimate Infantry guide already, you'll definitely know what this part of the video contains, and you may be asking what makes this different. To begin with, there's the Brawler star card. When you defeat an enemy in melee combat, your abilities refresh and you gain a small amount of health. It's up to 100. I definitely wouldn't recommend this star card as you don't find yourself in melee combat range very often, so you end up getting yourself killed if you actually try to engage an enemy in melee combat. But one star card that I would recommend is Resourceful, where all of your abilities have shorter recharge times. This helps for infantry classes such as the Officer, who rely on their abilities to actually succeed and support their teammates. And this 28% increase in recharge time actually comes in huge. Later on in the list, you find yourself with the Bodyguard star card, where you take reduced damage from explosions and toxins. This proves to be useful in choke points where you have a lot of explosive spam, such as Camino Phase 1. So if you are struggling there, 30% decrease explosive damage comes in huge, but with most grenades on Camino first phase being flash grenades, it doesn't seem to be doing too much damage. So I wouldn't really recommend using this star card apart from in certain situations. It doesn't really come in very helpful, especially when there's better star cards to actually run most of the time. But one star card that comes in very helpful if you find yourself dying very often is the Survivalist star card, where your health regeneration delay is shorter than normal, and it goes up to a 40% regen delay reduction. This comes in huge for classes like the Heavy, just because they actually have 200 HP to begin with, and it takes a while for them to regen every single one of those 200 hit points. One star card though that is absolutely vital for every single class is the Bounty Hunter star card, where you gain battle points at an increased rate. At purple, this is actually 20% increase. And this is probably why you notice yourself being at a disadvantage when trying to get heroes, because people may have the same amount of score as you, but they have a lot more battle points. I.e. in game modes such as Galactic Assault and Capital Supremacy, you may find yourself without a hero even though you have more kills than the person with a hero currently at the start of the game. The 2 last star cards that we're going to be covering in this universal set of star cards is the Marksman and Expert Weapons Handling. These both come hand in hand as they both reduce heat. The Marksman star card, for starters, is a star card that applies when you defeat an enemy with a headshot. You get 40% heat reduction, which is very helpful when using snipers such as the NT242, as they have low magazine sizes and headshots one shot. Next is the Expert Weapons Handling star card, where your weapon cooling success states are actually longer. This is the yellow bar on your weapon, allowing you to have the yellow bar for 66% increased duration, so you don't need to reload as often. This comes in very helpful when actually playing the objective and shooting at it for a long period of time. Alright, that's going to wrap up the specialist guide in depth. I hope you guys did enjoy the video, and if you did, make sure you guys leave a like down below, and hopefully you guys did learn something throughout the video and it improved your gameplay for when you get onto the Battlefront.